This is Pivot Perspectives with Chris O'Byrne, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they've learned on their road to success, and get exclusive access on how to implement their success into your life and business. Pivot Perspectives is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Chris O'Byrne.
Hey, are you looking to scale your business from 5 figures to 6 figures or 6 figures to 7 figures? If you are, I have the perfect thing for you. What I want you to do today is I want you to go download a book. This book is going to take you through my 3-pillar system. It's 100% free. All you have to do is go to growfast.cash. I say again, go to growfast.cash, and you're going to be able to download my free international best-selling book, which is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. You can take that book. It's going to help you scale your business to the next level. Again, go download it. Be good, be brief, be gone. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. Enjoy.
Colonel Joe Frankie, welcome to the show.
Chris, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to have you on. And I'd like to start with, what is a defining moment from your childhood that helped shape who you've become today?
I'd say a defining moment from my childhood was my father would just tell me, give me examples of life or positive things. And it was always went back to a story associated with, the 10-man crew of his B-17 that, he flew over. He was based in England, but flew missions in Germany in 1944 and 45. And so as a small child, he would talk about those experiences, but the way that he would talk about those other fellows was just amazing. And I always thought, well, the Army or whatever it does, must really have a way of bonding and, bringing out the best in people, because, on this crew, you depended on every person, to do his part, to be able to, survive a mission. And gave plenty of examples where people made quick decisions and, literally saved the day. So that kind of over time was a defining moment, and, got me interested, at least in thinking about, okay, my dad did 2.5 years in the military. Well, I can go do the same thing.
So did you, before you went in, because I know you went in when you were 18, what was it that helped you make up your mind that, yes, this is the path that I...
Well, I was at Boys State, Texas American Legion Boys State in Austin, and they had a cadet there from West Point. And he was just basically, everybody said, hey, if you want to go find out some stuff about West Point, got a cadet over here. And so, I went over there and asked questions and, was informative. And, the cadet was from Texas too, and about 2 weeks later, after I got back from Boys State, we got a letter from the superintendent of the military academy suggesting that I should probably, go through my congressman and apply, And so my mother said, hey, is this something you want to do? And I said, yes. So I'll never forget that day in July, I think it was, of 69. She moved the typewriter to the kitchen table. And that typewriter stayed there until May of the following year. Because,
was she busy writing letters?
Well, there wasn't the internet, right? So
right.
Everything that did with your application to the military academy was done through snail mail. So you did something, or you went and did something, and then you mailed it in, right? And typical thing, if you ever missed a suspense, you were out, So and I remember that year they had a postal strike in New York City. And I remember the Academy even sending us a letter saying that they would give 2 weeks extra time on these things because of the postal strike.
Oh, man. So while you were in the service, and you spent more than 2.5 years, you became the Chief of Staff and Director for the Army and Air Force Exchange Service. What did you learn from that experience?
Well, I got out of high school. A month later, I was in West Point, and beautiful 30-year career. And the last assignment I had was as Chief of Staff and Installation Commander at the Army and Air Force Exchange Service headquarters, which is in Dallas, Texas. And I learned an immense amount of things because the Army and Air Force Exchange Service at that time was the 12th largest retailer in the United States. It just sold to a limited population, which you had to be in the service. And during that time frame, that was 2001, and we went through 9/11. So for me, for 2 years, all I did at the Exchange Service was modify procedures and methodologies to accommodate the new world that we were living in. Because everything was going to require different ways of handling things. The bases were going to require different documentation. They were going to require TWICA cards on all of our drivers. So this was just a major reorganization of kind of the way we did business. And the other thing that I learned while I was there is if you think Amazon has it on anybody, a bunch of our constituents, our customers, couldn't get on base, because the first 3 months after 9/11, it was just very anal to get on the base. So 45% of our revenue came from, retirees. So consequently, we went through a procedure of notifying everybody that, hey, we do have a mail order. We do have online catalog sales over the web, and we do have mail order by phone. And so we had to retrain that populace to go there, and keep them. And one of the ways we did that was, hey, if you bought it here, would be free shipping. So that brought a lot of our customers, back into the fold, because there was a time post 9/11, we were losing almost $15 to $17 million a day off the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah. It required new thinking, new ways of doing things.
So you could have easily transitioned from the military into a high-level position at Amazon just to share the experience you learned.
Yeah, what I've found is the private sector doesn't know how to realize that and take advantage of that. Most everybody wants to look at you and say, well, you didn't spend your whole life in this vertical. And one thing when I talk to private sector leaders, I say, look, the military doesn't care whether you have any experience with this vertical or not. They trust you. You have a record of, finding success, making a silk's purse out of a sow's ear. And
Yep.
They put you in charge and they expect you to, get it done, and so I was given those kinds of assignments throughout my career, and I managed to get it done. I'm not really an aviator, but I ended up really redoing the entire logistics process for aviation repairables in the South Korean theater of operation. And people will say, well, you're not an aviator. You didn't grow up in that business. But, hey, we rewrote the procedures. We rewrote the contracts. We rewrote, it was all about, hey, how do you save more money and improve readiness of the operational fleet of aviation that we had in Korea, and make it so that it works on a wartime footing.
Now, earlier today, I was thinking about you told me that you had been classmates with General David Petraeus. I'm curious what your thoughts are about what makes certain people rise to such high levels in both the military and in business.
Well, um, fate of the universe, luck. You know, it was one time I was talking to one of the first B-1 pilots. And this is back in the '90s when there was like just one or two of these things.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Man, how did you get this assignment?" He said, "I was available at the time they needed to put somebody in the seat."
Oh.
and and I said, "Okay, so timing has a lot to do with various things, and as well as doing well in your last assignments, and people feeling that you have the potential to do more and documenting such." So that when these boards occur, you get, there's a pecking order. Board meets for promotion, board meets for command, and they pick one through whatever, you know. And so the key is to always try to get in the top 2% to keep progressing.
Is there a considerable amount of politicking involved?
I would say that, and I'm not a general officer, but I would say that, the Senate is kind of like a club. And once you make it into that club, and I would say that the GO ranks in all the military is kind of that way, because certainly there are more people qualified, to be general officers, but they don't need but a few every year. So it's a lot of that's going to be based on luck. Once again, somebody that you had served with, pull their bones out of the fire on occasion, So I don't think that's any different in the private sector from what I've seen.
Yeah, it does seem to be that. So now when you transitioned from military life to not just civilian life, but civilian business life, what was the biggest adjustment that you had to make?
The biggest adjustment I had to make was I thought, I had prepared myself. And what I found once I got into it, well, okay, I'm really not prepared. And so what I tried to do throughout my career was, I tried to educate myself as much as I could, so when we were close to abilities to educate, get further education. So in my military career, I was able to pick up, I have a BS in kind of civil engineering, certified as a engineer in training in the state of Pennsylvania, and then got a MBA at the University of Arkansas, and then taught at the University of Arkansas in the ROTC department. So while I was there, I went ahead and got another advanced degree, on my spare time, picking a couple hours up, each semester, or a couple of courses each semester, and finished a Master of Arts in Spanish there. And then later, when I was picked up for the Industrial College of the Armed Forces, went there and picked up a Master of Science in National Resource Strategy. So I've got 3 advanced degrees. So I thought, okay, I'm coming out in the private sector. I'm well educated. I'm, ready to go. I've been, entrusted, at the $1 billion level, making decisions in the Army and Navy for joint programs. And when I came out, I wanted to go in the private sector, not the military industrial complex. And what I found was, okay, I wasn't competing head to head. In other words, I'd go interview for a project manager job because I know how to run a team, know how to get things done, and got a track record doing it in the millions and billions. And, people looked at me and said, "Hey, Joe, we're not going to hire you." I said, "Well, why is that?" He says, "You're the best guy I've ever interviewed." And I said, "But why won't you hire me?" And he says, "Look, you've handled more money than the CEO. You've handled more bigger programs than the CEO. You've handled and supervise more people than the CEO? I said, but I'm not interviewing to be the CEO. And he said, doesn't matter. It's just not going to fly here. And he says, you could probably sue me for telling you that, but I'm trying to help you. I said, look, I appreciate the help. And so he said, look, go find some guys and gals putting together something where you get on the bottom end of things and, work your way up with sweat equity. And that's basically what I ended up doing. But, until I'd gone through this, exhaustive thing of not learning anything, because you never get a call back, you never get any coaching or counseling. And later on, I became an executive recruiter, and that was the first thing that the legal department told me is do not give anybody any feedback. So I said, well, okay, I see why this is happening, but it doesn't help people. And so I started out, working with a group that was trying to do water infrastructure in China, with a cooperative joint venture with their Chinese partners. And I was kind of the engineer, and, I was charged with knowing what a wastewater plant looked like, And by the way, that wasn't in my portfolio of stuff. So I went to Crowder College, and the short story is, took a wastewater plant operators course, so at least I could tell the front end and the back end of a wastewater treatment plant.
So while you were in the military, can you share a specific experience that helped define your approach to leading teams?
What I found in leading teams was you had to have a thick skin because you really had to let somebody give their opinion, okay? And in the military, it's very structured, and, there's a way that you talk to people and all that kind of stuff. And you basically had to say, okay, it's a free for all, and I want to hear the untarnished truth. So I think the best thing about becoming a leader is being a good listener. And I kind of picked that up from my grandfather, because he said, God gave you 2 ears. So you ought to be listening at least twice as much as talking, because when you're talking, you're not learning anything.
Wise advice.
So I think that helped me was really learning to listen actively and, make decisions from the untarnished truth of things.
You told me that you help leaders build a LinkedIn bridge from where they are now to where they want to go. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. What I find with most leaders is they're under merchandised, and especially executives. And I had to find that out the hard way. I had to learn that myself. And we're all schooled to be have a lot of humility, but when it comes to LinkedIn, what you're creating is you're creating the avatar of Chris Byrne, right? And this avatar is going to go have coffee virtually with other avatars of people. And so do you want to show up, in flip-flops, frayed shorts, and a dirty t-shirt? Or do you want to show up, in a sport coat, business casual, and present a good appearance? And LinkedIn gives you the ability to do that. And what I find is most people do not use it for its complete power. In other words, there's a lot of power there, and it's being underutilized. So what I really try to do is, okay, what is it that you want to do? What is it you want to become? We define that. Most people know where they are, okay? And what we're really trying to do, okay, what do you need to look like? So it's like fishing. What do you need to look like so that this trout will come and take you? Because we both like filet mignon, but we can't choose to fish with it and think we're going to have great results. So and I've found most people say, "Hey, Joe, can you help me with my LinkedIn profile? Nobody's talking to me." I said, "Well, yeah, I can tell you why nobody's talking to you. You say you want to be a director, but everything on your profiles, it says you got vice presidential experience. So let's go out here and say that you're looking for a vice president position, because there's vice president positions, in $1 billion corporations and in $20 million corporations. So, you're probably at the $40 million, 50, 60 million. You're not up there in the billions. But once we did that, and we got the metrics out there that people want to see, for vice presidents and that kind of stuff, then he started getting some calls. And you got to get the calls first. You can't go to an interview without getting it.
Yeah.
And so, and I realized that because I'm an executive recruiter. And I got trained, by one of the big companies, it was good training and on how to do it and everything. And this is when I learned, not only did military people do not know how to properly transition themselves unless they've made some ultimate preparations, but a lot of executives, they're head down, they're making money, they do what they need to do. And while in the last 5 years, while they were doing all this stuff, everybody moved the cheese on how they were going to get selected for the next deal.
Yeah.
So the way you did it the old way is not necessarily going to be the successful way in the new way. And then I found that a lot of executives have a lot of humility. Like, our grandmothers taught us appropriately. Well, you got to kind of get away from that and use what I call the Dizzy Dean dictum. It ain't bragging if you done it. If you got the metrics to back it up, then you're okay. I had a world-class project manager come to me one time and said, "Joe, you know me. I'm world-class. I've worked for the Fortune 100 on projects, and, nobody's." I look at your profile, and I said, "But you don't say that you don't say you've done anything." He said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm a world-class project manager." I said, "That's just blah, blah, blah." Okay. I see that 100 times a day. I'm in executive recruiting. He said, "Well, what do you want to see?" And I said, "What I want to see is I am a world-class project manager. I am XX certified in this. I've done 17 projects in the last 10 years, ranging in value from $1.7 million to $28.7 million, with project teams of 2 to 27. All projects came in on time and under budget." Those 3 sentences tell me that you're world-class. You know it. In fact, I can even say it because I've read your resumes and I've been working with you. But the LinkedIn profile you have right now, I'm not going to recommend you to anybody. And I know you. So for me to recommend you, you got to show up, dress right, dress and covered down, ready to go. If not, why am I going to put my reputation on the line saying this person ought to spend, 20 minutes with you? And not be right. So when I call them, they know what type of people, I'm asking them to give 15 to 20 minutes.
Looking to grow your business beyond 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures plus? What I want you to do is go download this book. The title is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. It will help you grow your business past 5, 6, and 7 figure. Go download the book today, growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and download the book for absolutely free.
Switching gears a little bit, because I know that you have experience in this. So given your work with AI and technology, how do you see the role of innovation changing the way businesses?
Well, I think, we talk a lot about AI and innovation, but I think what you're seeing is world is in constant change. AI is just a new term, and it's going to unleash, some capabilities. But when you think about it, we've been going through what the previous thing to AI and the previous thing to that. Business is just one continuous adaptation. And even if you look at LinkedIn, when I got on it 20 years ago, it's a lot different today in its power and capability. and it's owned by Microsoft, which means that anytime there's some new capability or some new AI thing that's going to work, they've got the money to, either buy it or acquire it or put it into the system. So I just tell everybody, they say, well, what am I going to do about the new AI? I said, just relax. You're going to be a perpetual student, whether you like it or not. I mean, you can't live in this world and not be a perpetual student because things are definitely going to change.
So, what lessons did you learn from your military career when you're advising businesses on navigating, let's just say, volatile market conditions?
Volatile market conditions, I always say, it all goes back to your crew. Did you put the right crew in there? Are you hiring the right people? And if you've been issued the people, then are you training them? And people will say, well, I don't have any money to train them. I said, well, then you either got to train them yourself or you got to look at budgeting, whatever you need to do to keep your people current in things. And part of this might be just letting them have the time to go in their own profession to some place where, a conference where they're going to get, all of this stuff kind of congealed in one spot, and plus, you network with other people. And I had one person tell me, he said, well, they'll just go find a new job. And I said, well, then if you think that, then you're not taking care of your people. You're either not paying them at market conditions, or you're not going around and talking to these people and knowing what they want and they like. So really building a cohesive team, at your level, whether you're a leader of 3 people or you're a leader, of 3 direct reports and 30 people, you got to take care of the flock. You got to be a servant leader. And if you're a servant leader, people don't really jump for pay. In other words, if it's huge or something like that and it's a promotion, they will. But most people will stay with you if there's some idea that in the future that they're going to be taken care of, and if you're talking to them and working with them. And what I find in going through these companies and everything, these supervisors are not talking to these people. And it's even much harder when you've got this whole idea where so many people are coming into work and all these other people work for someplace else. So the same thing's still got to happen. It's going to be harder when these people are not in the workplace, but hey, that's a leader's responsibility.
So switching gears again, I want to talk about your book. So you wrote a book called LinkedIn, The 5-Minute Drill for Executive Networking Success. What is that book about specifically, and how does it help your ideal client?
So the book serves 2 purposes. One, most executives were lamenting to me that, hey, Joe, I don't have time for this LinkedIn stuff. I'm really not interested in it. But, I've got to be in it enough so that I'm seen, that I put my little footprint or telltale scent out there every now and then. I said, well, you're right about that. So somebody's giving you good advice about that. But so since they were lamenting about the time, I worked on what I call the 5-minute drill. And so by the 6th or 7th page, I've already told you and given you a checklist of exactly what you need to do if you don't like LinkedIn, but you got to be seen and heard a little bit. And so the 5-minute drill shows you how in 5 minutes, you can accomplish about 6 or 7 things. But you've got to stick with the discipline of the checklist. So I had one guy call me and said, hey, I've tried to do what you say and it takes me, 15 minutes. And I said, well, then you're not following the checklist. And he said, what do you mean? He said, well, that checklist tells you to go do this, 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 and this. And I said, if you practice it for 10 days, not looking up, following the checklist, you can do it in 5 minutes. And I said, I'll bet you a steak dinner on it. And he said, but okay. He said, I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to use the checklist. And he came back to me in about 2 weeks and he said, Joe, you're right. He said, I found something that I liked and I was going and reading that. I said, that's not part of the checklist. I said, you're free to do that. You're free to do the 5-minute drill more than once a day. But people wanted to know what they needed to do to spend 5 minutes, get in and get out. And that's what that does. Then the rest of the book really helps you with LinkedIn, how to use it to get what you want, and the things that need to be on your profile. And the book is a 1-hour read. And the hardest thing I have ever done in my entire life is write a 1-hour.
Yeah, try to get it narrowed down. What was your process like to write the book?
So my co-author is Lori Ruff, and she is another subject matter expert on LinkedIn. And I wanted to co-author the book with a subject matter expert that was a woman. So I'm kind of the engineer, military-minded set, and she's a woman, kind of the emotional set. And I think the book is well received because both of us wrote it, right? Because everybody can kind of see the woman part in kind of the male practical part. But anyway, we did a good job on it. It's rated 4.9 out of 5.0 on Amazon, and book's even being used in some high school business classes, not because it's a great book on LinkedIn, but I think it's because it's an hour read.
Fits within a class period. So what kind of feedback have you received about the book?
I've gotten some really good feedback. And, fortunately, when somebody gives me the feedback, I said, please go back and don't give me the feedback, but give Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, the feedback there, because that's where it helps me the most. But the feedback I like is, hey, it was short, to the point, and, it's kind of what I was looking for, because nobody wants to spend, to me, a 300-page book on LinkedIn, I mean, that would just kill me. So, there's a lot of things we could have probably done better. There's a lot of things we left out because there's I think 173 pages on the cutting room floor. I mean, it was a lot. Wow. But trying to get it to be, 1 hour. And we say right up front, look, if this book is confusing you, go back to Lori Ruff's book, Rock the World with LinkedIn 2.0. And, it has every section of LinkedIn broken out, so you can know what it's used for. But the biggest challenge, I would say, today is LinkedIn gives you your entire full body. In other words, when you sign up on LinkedIn, you sign up with a skeleton of Chris O'Byrne, right? And then it's your job, okay, my name's Chris O'Byrne, so I put a little forehead, I do this, and then you're on LinkedIn. Okay, but you got the rest of the bone structure, you got the rest of the body, you got the rest of the muscles, ligaments, and tendons. And what you have is people do not build themselves a complete body out there. LinkedIn gives you the capability to do that.
So, okay. So when you first published your book, what were your expectations for how it would help your business?
My expectations for my generation, or our generation, because both of us have gray hair.
We are.
Morgan James took our book and published it, and they look at 400 books a year and publish maybe 40. So that means we made the top 10%. And so what that allowed us is the book to be in all forms. In other words, electronic form, print form, and then be in all the major things, Rakuten, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, all the usual suspects, and even in the Canadian system as well. And that was the beauty of, Morgan James publishing the book, is it's out there. In fact, it's even on Target online. So it's an experience. But you asked me what the advantage was, and I think the advantage is our generation doesn't respect your authority unless you've been through the eye of a needle somewhere. And so we went through the eye of the needle at Morgan James, They took us on, they published us. And so really, I tell people, publishing a book is not going to make you any money. But publishing a book, correctly and getting a publisher to help you or take you on, certainly gives us a lot of authority that we wouldn't normally have. In other words, you
Yeah.
earn the authority, at least of our generation, pretty much says, okay, you've been through that and you got out here, so there must be something to this.
Is there anything that you wish you would have done differently with your book, whether it's during the writing process or the marketing or how you've leveraged it?
Yeah. And you have these force majeure things, right? In fact, I had a force majeure thing on our project in China. Lehman Brothers tanked, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the minute they tanked, that sent the international monetary thing into like turmoil, right? So everything we worked on wasn't going to work because the price of capital had just changed. So what happened with our book is released in December of 2019, right? So that means it's getting out into the system in January, February, and then you got COVID. So all of these book shows we were going to have and these towns and all that stuff where you couldn't have a grouping of people. And don't think anybody gives you any of that money back either.
No.
They just say the government said we can't do it, so you're out. So we really had to pivot and learn how to really go virtual, on the book. And so, there's no shortage of things that can happen out there. I mean, who would predict a COVID, and who would predict that Lehman Brothers would tank at that moment, which caused reverberations in the financial systems of the
Yeah, pretty far reaching. So as you reflect back on your career, both military and business, what do you want your legacy to be? And what are you doing to ensure that you're achieving that legacy?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to coach 730 people to date professionally. And that's all the way from a 14-year-old to an 84-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And the bulk of my clientele is two standard deviations around the mean, are 40-plus-year-olds trying to figure out what's next. Because at 40-plus years old, nobody's chasing you anymore.
Yeah.
So at that point, you really have to have a world-class LinkedIn profile to be seen for what you bring to the table and the problems you solve with teams. Because when you're looking for a new assignment from 40 to 65, somebody's really wanting to know that you've already solved that problem with a crew and been successful. And the only way they're going to know that is if you tell that story on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn gives you the ability to tell story after story after story.
Yeah.
Both you sell your intellect and you sell your emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And your emotional intelligence does not get sold or matriculated on a resume. So everybody goes to your LinkedIn profile, to see, okay, how does this person, get things done? They want to know you inside and out. But if you don't put anything on the LinkedIn profile and you don't tell anything about yourself, then you're going back to a model that was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I, as an executive search person, would call you up and say, hey, I'm looking at your resume and I think you probably did this. Oh, yeah, I did that, But today, I mean, the speed of business and, that somebody wants an executive and all that stuff, I mean, I don't have time for that. I'd say, well, this person probably did it, but I'm not going to call them because I can find these 3 other guys and gals right here that meet this requirement because I am working for a client and I'm trying to close the deal.
Got it.
You got to be show ready 24/7, 365 in today's world, or you'd just be left behind.
Yeah. Definitely found that to be true. So as we begin to wrap this up, what are some parting words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with?
I'd say, are you using LinkedIn to your particular advantage? And the reason I say your advantage, because some person might be an author, some person might be a consultant, some person might be a medical professional. And with that, there's certain things that you can market and merchandise. And so LinkedIn is your billboard to the world. Are you going to have a small billboard? It's your call. And if it's not on your LinkedIn profile, as far as I'm concerned, you've never, ever in your life done it.
Yeah. So as far as people are concerned, clear, if it's not there, then it doesn't exist. It doesn't help you in any way at all.
Right.
So
then you're back to the old way. And that's somebody knows you inside and out, and they're referring to you to somebody you know. That method beats everything. Okay. But in today's world, your opportunity is probably not next door. Your opportunity might be 2 states away, and nobody's going to see that.
So the bottom line is read the book, because you go through that process in there.
I do.
Yeah. So where is the best place for people to go to learn more about you? I'll make sure that your links are available as well. But in general, where would you like people to go to learn more about you?
Well, you can learn more about me and it's open to everybody because I let it be open to everybody, but my LinkedIn profile is available for anybody to see. And, I've never advertised, and I've coached in 15 different countries, which means people are finding me. Yeah. So they're doing searches on LinkedIn, and that's leading to a message or note, leading to a phone call, leading to a coaching session.
That's exactly how we met. It was connecting through LinkedIn, and then we got on a call, right. And then now we're here for the interview. So I'm very thankful for that. Thank you for coming on today and for sharing all this.
Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. The whole style of this is a lot of fun.
Oh, good. Yeah, I try to, like I said, go a little bit deeper when I can and dig out and think in terms of what I want to learn more about if I were listening. So really, it becomes an easy process. It's just, well, what do I want to learn more about? And then we go from there. But some really good insights, and appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you allowing for us to have this time.
You bet. Well, thank you.
Hey, are you looking to scale your business from 5 figures to 6 figures or 6 figures to 7 figures? If you are, I have the perfect thing for you. What I want you to do today is I want you to go download a book. This book is going to take you through my 3-pillar system. It's 100% free. All you have to do is go to growfast.cash. I say again, go to growfast.cash, and you're going to be able to download my free international best-selling book, which is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. You can take that book. It's going to help you scale your business to the next level. Again, go download it. Be good, be brief, be gone. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. Enjoy.
Thanks for listening to Pivot Perspectives with your host, Chris O'Byrne. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advice on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.
There it is. Magnum. Holy moly.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Dear God, it's beautiful.